In this presentation, we shall carry on discussing what we started on the importance of ensuring that the logic of ijtihad does not end up creating harm for people in various types of dire necessity. The general principle is that the greater the difficulty a person or community is facing, the greater the quality and quantity of allowances that Sharia is ready to make for people in that situation. So as people face certain hardships that amount to darura or dire necessity, where the daruriyat or survival, for example, is threatened, Sharia is ready to relax the laws prohibiting certain things that were haram in and of themselves, the haram of the maqasid. And so alcohol would be permissible, eating pork would be permissible. So as a general rule, the more the difficulty a person is facing, the more the type and quality of haram that a person is allowed to do. Whereas if a person is not in darura, but is in a state of haja, difficulty but not life-threatening, then certain things that are haram of the means become permissible because of a person in a haja situation. So if a person, for example, needs to have a test for whether they have breast cancer or not, they are not in a darura situation, they're in a haja situation. It's not confirmed they have anything. They may suspect they do. They just want to have a test just in case. They are not in darura, it's not life-threatening, but they are in a state of haja. Consequently, such a person showing their aura to a male doctor, for example, would be permissible because that is haram not in and of itself, but haram because of what it could lead to. And in a state of haja, it is unlikely. The risk or the probability of it leading to the haram for which it is haram is less likely. So people who are in a state of haja, those things that are haram of the means become temporarily permissible for them. Whereas when somebody is in a state of tahsini, comfort, no difficulty, then no form of haram becomes permissible for such people. When therefore we look at the general rulings, the more the difficulties, the more the concessions. The less the difficulties, the less the concessions. Briefly, scholars would agree that when an individual or community is in a state of darura, it is more severe than haja. It is the most severe type of situation. And generally, haram of the ends and haram of the means are all permissible. When, however, somebody is in a state of haja only, not darura, then the haram of the ends remain prohibited, but the haram of the means become permissible. But when a haja hits a person, it is not taken as serious as when haja or difficulty hits a society. So when a society is in a situation of haja, scholars generally in this field treat it as if it was a darura, because they want to avoid society falling into a situation or a state of emergency and crisis. And so a state of haja for a society is treated as a darura, and haram of the ends and the means also become generally permissible. When a person is also in a state of haja, scholars use the existence of differing opinions among scholars to give concessions for such people. So if there's a difference of opinion among scholars, some saying it is permissible for a woman to travel without a mahram, without a chaperone, or somebody related to her, some say it is not permissible for a woman to travel without a mahram. Some say, such as Ibn Taymiyyah, that so long as the road is safe, that a woman can travel without a mahram. Ibn Hazm also holds this view. However, the existence of that difference of opinion among scholars, because traveling without a mahram is not haram in and of itself in the view of these scholars, it is haram because it would lead to insecurity for the woman. She may be abused in one way or the other. It is therefore a haram of the means. So they consider that a woman or even if there was debate about whether it was a haram of the means or a haram of the ends, the mere fact that there was difference of opinion, some saying it is halal, some saying it is haram, the mere existence of a difference of opinion is a reason why a person who is facing a state of difficulty of the level of haja, not darura, but haja, should be given the easier way out. Because the Prophet said also, Yassir wala tu'assir, make things easy for people, don't make them difficult. So, when a person is in a state of darura, nearly all the harams become permissible, except probably things like murder. Though Imam Malik would say, if killing a third of the population would save 2/3 of the population, then it is still the lesser evil. May Allah keep us away from such choices. But when an individual is in a case of darura, haram of the ends and the means become permissible. When an individual is in the state of haja, only haram of the means become permissible, not haram of the ends. When a society is in a state of haja, it is treated like darura, and haram of the means and the ends would become permissible for most scholars. When an individual is in a state of haja, and there's difference of opinion among scholars regarding the permissibility or otherwise of a particular action, then they use the state of haja as an excuse to permit what some scholars consider prohibited, but which some scholars consider permissible. But in a state of tahsini, where there's sufficient comfort, no haram becomes permissible. As we said earlier, this is what scholars do with tools such as Saddud Daraya or Fathud Daraya or Istihsan, where they move away from the normal ruling to a fatwa, a ruling that is temporary, is not permanent, but which they feel would achieve the objectives of Sharia more effectively. And so when we look at where there exists a clash between the letter of the law and the purpose or spirit of the law, scholars prefer to go with what they are more certain about. That is, those objectives they are more certain about, and not the literal application of the law if it is going to clearly go contrary to the objectives or purposes or maqasid of Sharia, as we have seen in the life of Sahaba such as Umar, who is ready to suspend clear injunctions from the Prophet about zakat on horses, or injunctions in the Quran about amputating the hands of thieves, where he realizes this is not going to achieve objectives. He goes with what will achieve the objectives. And there's a general maxim that the affairs of an imam or a leader should be governed by maslahah, or by reference to what is in the best interest of the public.